Good morning, traders. It is Wednesday, March 27th. I guess that means today is hump day. I'm Jonathan van Clute with Stock Navigators. It's 5:45 a.m. and we are going to talk about the markets. Real quick before we do, just want to remind everybody to please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and also leave me comments with tickers or anything you'd like me to analyze, like us to start looking at in the future, or any other way that we can help you with your trading day in the mornings, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when I do these analyses. All right, let's get started by looking at the S&P 500 like I always do. And it is in a very sensitive area right now. We have, whoops, let me get rid of that. There we go. So it is right now at the trend line. You can see right there. There we go. We have pulled back to the trend line. It is held as support, and right now, anyway, it's hanging in there. We have a doji right in this moment. You can just see it formed right there, where the open and close are at the exact same level, but it's overnight, right? So, how much does that really matter? How significant is it? I'll go ahead and zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. It probably doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot by the time the market actually opens. I expect to see that begin to move more significantly. But I mean, you can see very clearly price came down, tested, held, and came back up above the trend line. So at the moment, anyway, the bull trend is very definitely still intact. Higher highs, higher lows. We had the higher high there, higher low there, higher high up here, higher low there, etc. So we're still making higher highs and higher lows, but that is all happening under a declining oscillator. It's getting weaker and weaker and weaker and heading towards that zero line. So this trend is still to the upside, but it's running out of steam. I think it's very unlikely to be able to go a whole heck of a lot higher. Maybe we see kind of a double top here, something like that, on an even further declining oscillator. Maybe we get slightly above, take out a bunch of stops, and then can head back down. Or maybe it doesn't get that high at all. Maybe it just wears itself out somewhere in this range. We don't know yet what's going to happen. We'll have to wait and see. But right this instant, the bulls are still in charge. You can see on the 60-minute chart, the zero line was crossed to the upside a while back, and all of this has been staying above the upside since the last couple of days, day and a half, something like that. But look where we are right now, right at the zero line, just barely above it, 1.12. So right now, the 60-minute is pretty weak. The oscillator has been declining. We don't technically have a divergence since we didn't make higher highs, but the oscillator is pretty weak right now. And if we see a cross below the zero line, then we can expect at least just a short-term dip of some sort. And I zoom out a bit, you can see what has happened the last couple of times. The oscillator has gotten below the zero line. You can see it there. You can see it there. So as we get closer to that zero line, just watch out, especially given that the daily is already running out of steam anyway. We're up here near a sensitive area. We're right in the sell zone right now, where price did get over it and then yank right back down into it, and now it's been trapped in the middle of it. So we're in the sell zone. The oscillator is weakening on the daily. The 60-minute oscillator is about to cross the zero line to the downside. If it does, that's pretty decent confirmation that this is not likely to hold. At a minimum, like I said, we're going to get a short-term pullback. So just be prepared for that. If the market gives us a strong up morning, the first half hour to an hour, we get a big sudden move up, just watch out for it because it can be a setup. You can have something like this, and then down we go. So just watch out for any up moves. I would be very cautious about anything to the long side at this point. If you are long and you get a profit, probably want to think about taking it relatively quickly, maybe even a little quicker than you normally would. All right, now let's take a look at crude oil. And crude is still just hanging in there, just barely clinging to this uptrend line, but it is clinging. It's staying. So at the moment, can't argue with that. The bias is to the upside. We do have a ever so slightly divergent oscillator where it is making slightly lower highs than before, while price clearly makes higher highs. but it's not huge. We're still a ways off the zero line. Um, so I don't see it imminently about to pull back sharply or anything like that. But just be aware that the oscillator is getting a bit weaker on the daily. On the 60-minute, however, check this out. We are just crossing the zero line to the downside right now. So if we hold below that zero line, if price, which is right now trying to push up, if price comes up, gives up the ghost, and comes back down again, then I would be looking for at least a short-term trade to the downside. Is much like the ES, in fact, exactly like the ES. You can see what happens every time we get a cross of the zero line to the downside. Even though we're in an uptrend, we get a little bit of a pullback to be played, and we get a quick down move. So there is definitely opportunity if the oscillator is crossing below the zero line, which it has just done. So it crossed below the zero line there, and now it's pulling back. And if it does this, then I would expect a further follow through. And, not necessarily going to break this low, although if it does, that certainly is significant. But maybe to somewhere here or something like that, just a decent little pullback and then be able to continue the uptrend. But right now, anyway, we are looking for a pullback to be happening based on that oscillator crossing the zero line. Also, the MACD, of course, after the oscillator got up pretty high, the MACD did cross below its signal line. But you can see that that was obviously early. That was not a sign to instantly go short, right in here. Obviously, price was able to shoot higher. It's just sort of putting you on notice to be aware of that kind of thing going on. Did I circle the wrong thing? I think I circled the wrong thing. Just realized I circled totally the wrong place. I was talking about here. But anyway, still, the oscillator, or the MACD crossed the signal line to the downside there. And that was just a little bit early. So, the down move hadn't really started yet. But now we're seeing it pick up some speed and cross below that zero line. So, certainly is heading to the downside in the short term. Long term, though, that uptrend still intact. Can't really argue with that. So if you play a quick move down, a quick pullback, just be ready to keep it quick. Grab your money, get out. Quick look at gold, which is still trying to march higher. I still see this as a potential bear flag. It is just still trying to form. We have kind of sloppy lines there, but you get the idea. We have this, and right now we have not broken to either the upside or the downside. So that flag is just continuing to build. How long is it going to build for? I don't know, but I'm looking for a sharp break one direction or the other. And so far, we haven't gotten it. The oscillator has crossed above the zero line on the daily just a few days ago. So that is a bullish sign. This pullback certainly is done, formed a higher low, and now we're looking to march higher. So at the moment, bulls are hanging in there. They are really refusing to give up, and they are keeping control. If we break this bear flag to the downside, then I am looking for this as an approximate target, 1251 or thereabouts, as a continuation. That's just the distance from here to here, plotted there. All right, so that is kind of what I'm looking at as a target. But we really need to break that flag to the downside, and right now we do not have that at all. On the shorter term time frame, oscillator is really just sticking around that zero line, but it has been coming back up. It broke below, and now it's coming back up. So again, the bulls are just hanging in there. We've got the uptrend line here, which has certainly been holding. Price has actually been holding well away from that uptrend line. There's no question about it. The bull trend is still intact. So if you could only pick one direction, you kind of need to go with the bulls at this point, because the trend is still up. Until we break this low here, for example, and set a lower low, and then we have a pattern of lower lows and lower highs. If we can get that, then we know that the trend has reversed. And at a minimum, again, I'm looking for this 100% extension of this move here as a reasonable target. And it certainly could go lower if we get a more significant pullback, but that's just a reasonable target to look for. Take a quick look at natural gas, which is actually pulling back. We have finally kind of broken down below the moving average here, the 21 EMA, and now you can see it's dipped downwards. The trend is rolling over. We have gotten below the zero line. This is significant. It's been hanging in there on very low momentum, just refusing to get below, and all of a sudden now it has dipped below. But we still have just this ridiculously small candles. There's just no volatility. There's really nothing going on the 60-minute. You can see here, shorter term time frame, we've double bottomed and on a stronger oscillator. So this is a very bullish divergence. So definitely looking for something to the upside to pop. That being said, unless it can get up over this level here, we are still in a short-term downtrend. You can see it here. Certainly are making lower lows and lower highs. And now we've made a second low, but it's a double bottom low. It's not a lower low. So if that holds and we break to the upside, especially if price can get back above the oscillator again, then I'd be looking for some follow through to the upside, just like you can see happened here and even there, small one, small move, and then there, etc. Every time we cross the zero line to the upside or the downside, really, we get a quick bit of follow through. So watch for that to happen. Watch that oscillator level and watch that zero line. And we cross that, especially if it coincides with a cross of the downward moving average, downward trend line rather here, then certainly we could have an upside trade on our hands. Right now, though, the short term trend is certainly down. The 21 EMA is making lower lows and lower highs. So short-term trend is headed down. Got to trade accordingly. If you've got a longer term, longer term view, however, keep in mind that we had a very bullishly divergent oscillator here. As price made new lows, oscillator was making higher lows, and then it's just consolidated for a while. So it could certainly be building up for a nice bullish move to the upside. That would not surprise me to see. So always got to wait and see what the market wants to give us, because right now it's still fairly sideways. There is not a strong trending market going on in natural gas at this moment. And finally, let's finish up with Bitcoin. Again, there's not a whole heck of a lot to say. It's still just stuck in this range. However, this little bull trend here is hanging in there. It's a very gentle trend. I mean, this is a really low momentum, low energy trend for Bitcoin. You can see how little momentum there is in the oscillator. Compare that to this oscillator here, where it was huge momentum to the downside, big gigantic moves. We just haven't seen that in a long time. There are these quick little moves, as I'm always pointing out, and Bitcoin does move, and even a small move in Bitcoin can be $50 to $100 move. So it's not insignificant, but just they come on so fast when they happen. You better be positioned for it and ready to take advantage of it when it occurs, and that can be tricky for some. So right now, anyway, shorter term oscillator is very, very strong, very, very much to the upside, to the bull side, which makes me think we could be running out of steam sometime soon. If I look back in the past, it certainly has been higher than this before. I know it's been really, really high in the past, even here, even here. So it is getting weaker and weaker and weaker, but price is not making higher highs. We're still down below this level. So it's not a divergence or anything. It's just interesting to note that the oscillator is strong, but not as strong as it could be. And you can see to the downside, of course, it can get even stronger because you get panic kicking in and big sell-offs. So anyway, at the moment, we do still have higher highs and higher lows. So yeah, it's a tricky market. As I have said countless times, we really got to get up over this level to have any significant bullish turnaround confirmed. That's the level we got to get over. The downside, we got to get down below this, 3129, somewhere in that range, 3129, and then get above 4415, somewhere around there. But right now, it's just trapped in that range. The bulls are wanting to keep control, but they're doing so in a very gradual, gentle fashion. This is just a very slowly turning move here, but it is turning. You can definitely see that curve. So trend is trying to head up, and if you want to get a longer term trade, perhaps this is an area to think about buying this whole zone here. But of course, we can always pull back below there, and if that happens, then certainly there is one more push to the downside to be had. So trade cautiously if you're into crypto. All right, going back, taking a peek at the S&P, nothing really exciting to report, just kind of hanging out where it was. We'll have to see what happens when the market opens in 30 minutes. So 30 minutes to the opening bell. That is it for the morning analysis. I'm going to go get ready for the premium chat room this morning. So if you are going to be in there, I will see you there. Everybody else, again, a reminder to please do subscribe to the channel if you're not already. To subscribers who have joined us recently, big welcome to you. So thank you very much for joining the channel, and I hope we are able to help you in your trading. Again, leave any tickers or anything you'd like us to comment on or look at, analyze, anything like that. Leave them in the comments below, and we will take a look at them. All right, that's it for me. Until Friday morning. Good trading, everybody.